You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Christian, now Houston would like to be playing this weekend and keep things going. I think Kansas State is probably relieved to not be playing this weekend.
Iffy. It's the 4-game mark, you know, with that whole dreadful red shirt issue, transfer portal thing coming up. We haven't heard any news yet, but it's a weird time for a bye week.
But fans, I think, get to sit around and enjoy some good football this weekend. And while I would laugh if Tulsa upset Oklahoma State, that would probably be bad for the conference, and I would regret that later. But that would be funny. The game of the weekend for the Big 12 Conference is the one that's going to be on national television in a lot of ways, right? It is Texas Tech at Utah. It is kicking off at noon Eastern. It's the big noon kickoff game on Fox. I believe it's the two highest ranked teams in the conference. Still, 16 and 17 in the AP poll.
No, I think Iowa State's got them
by a little bit,
but they're not playing this week.
Not playing this weekend. And I say that to say that this needs to be an entertaining game, and it also probably means that one of them, as far as like the national conversation, is going to get left out afterwards, right? What are you making of Utah and Tech this weekend?
Yeah, well, look, you got to. I continue to say this on my show, and it's more of just a hopeful kind of conversation. The two teams that went to Arlington were 7-2. Now there were some tiebreakers involved, things like that. As an 0-1 in the Big 12, I have to continue to keep that hope up. Statistically, Kansas State can still make it to Arlington. Realistically, most likely, probably not. So you can't say that just because they lose this football game, they're going to be out of it. But it's huge when it comes to tiebreaker implications. Something that most definitely happened last year in Arlington. Kansas State has to play both these teams. They play Texas Tech in Manhattan, and they play Utah in Salt Lake City. I know you only have to play Texas Tech this year, so you would think that you'd probably want Utah to win this game so you can take care of Texas Tech in the tiebreaker. Wouldn't that be correct?
Well, and Houston gets Texas Tech in a couple weeks, October 4th. It's going to be a big deal. They've already announced it's going to be the Houston blue jersey Oiler themed kind of game. I can't tell if it's better for Tech to have taken a loss or for, let's say, Tech just rolls them and is feeling a little too high in my. I don't know which one works better. I will say I'm going to be taking copious notes at noon on Saturday about what Texas Tech looks like. I don't know what to make of this game from a picks perspective right now. Because
what was your thought perspective on Devin Dampier heading into this season? Because I so far was completely wrong. I did not have him as a top quarterback in the conference.
I didn't, and I felt really vindicated the first half of that Wyoming game. I wasn't very high, and frankly, about halftime Wyoming, I was like, see, this is what I thought. And then I was like, oh, I might have been wrong on that one. He warmed up a little bit. To be fair, though, I think Behren Morton has also proved me wrong. I was like, okay, you spent all this money and got him all these weapons, but he's still Behren Morton, and he's putting up 60 and stuff against bad teams, but like he's doing it through the air, right? So I think I lean into Tech getting it done, but that may be the Lone Star State Texan in me. As a closer to neutral observer, you got to play both these teams. What are you picking here? What are you thinking?
Yeah, Tech has really acted like a world beater so far, but I think Utah has had the tougher test so far. Even though UCLA hasn't been any good, there was some moments. Of course, Utah playing some other teams very close in the games. Wyoming potentially could be a little better than we thought in the Mountain West. Who knows if that's the case? But Texas Tech and or they played Oregon State, even though there was a 2.5 hour weather delay. All that did was just extend the inevitable of Texas Tech putting the brakes on Oregon State. They've just been a mess of a team this year. I'm going to lean towards Utah in this one. Play a devil's advocate on you just because I feel they're a little more tested. It's at home. There's this narrative that because it's early, Utah fans won't show up. I think their fans will take that to heart. And although Texas Tech did buy all that money and all those players, and they did do everything it's going to do, I think Kyle Whittingham finally has this team on the right spot. And as we mentioned earlier, with Dampier, us being down on him, I think he's going to prove us wrong again. So I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be really close. I wouldn't touch either spread. I don't even know what it is, but I wouldn't touch it. But I think Utah wins this one by a hair.
And they're at home, and that's fair. A couple games I think we're probably in agreement on, at least from respect for the Big 12. A pair of teams playing other Power 4, other ACC games, and the first of which is, as a Lone Star State native, TCU and SMU in the Iron Skillet. When SMU was a Group of 5 team, they had set 2025 as the last year for the foreseeable future this game gets played. They have not altered that since SMU bought their way into a power conference. I guess you can't quite buy everything, including Iron Skillets, but I think we both want TCU to win. TCU looked great against North Carolina to start the year on that primetime game. Do you have any concerns in that one? I feel pretty good about it.
I think there's some concerns. I think you can definitely say, I mean, look what SMU did to Baylor at the beginning of that game. Obviously Baylor found a way to come back. Does SMU allow that to happen again for the second Big 12 opponent of the season? I think that gives some concerns. I think TCU could potentially be riding a little high too, maybe potentially be humbled against an SMU team. Whoever wins this game most likely will be ranked in the AP poll the following week, in my opinion. That's my guess, especially if it's TCU. I think they can get it done, but when we're talking about some of these teams and some of these games, this is definitely a concerning one. Would it shock me if SMU won? Not in the slightest, but I think TCU can get it done. I think Sonny Dykes is the better coach, and I think that is going to be the reason why they get it done.
And they're at home, and they've got purple corn dogs. I will say one thing we all win on is that if SMU wins, Drake has to fill a cavity with one of those, apparently. And we're going to hold him to that, Christian. If it happens, we're going to make Drake, host of Locked On Big 12, do that. I think TCU wins this game. I do think it's close. It's a rivalry game. They're 45 minutes apart. I think it's going to be a fun game.
I hate that it's at the same time as the Tech Utah game.
Right.
I hate that. Yeah.
Right. Quad box is great, but I want to put one of those with the audio so I can actually focus a little bit.
Same. Right
the 3:30 Eastern game is Central Florida hosting North Carolina. And I kind of just want to say the Big 12 owns Bill Belichick. Is there any possibility that happens?
I think there's a possibility for sure. I don't think so. UCF is the next one on Kansas State's schedule. So I'll be glued in to this game. And look, I think Scott Frost is going to get this team right. I just don't know if they're there yet. Of course, they have quarterback issues of their own. They've had one all off season with their position battle. They haven't looked amazing, although they haven't lost the game yet. Can Scott Frost shock the world? And that will be the most, if that happens, if TCU wins and UCF wins, UCF will be the most impressive win, because Scott Frost, what he's doing in building this team up after what happened last season, I think that'll be super impressive. Although North Carolina isn't what everybody expects them to be, or everybody thought they were going to be just because of their head coach, I think if UCF can do that, not only is that scary for Kansas State after the bye week, that's very interesting for the rest of the Big 12. I mean, we might have had this backwards, right? We might have another Arizona State on our hands, of an Arizona or possibly a UCF. I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but still a lot of things to think about. But as much as I want to, just because I don't think we can always just go full chalk on Big 12. I don't think that's the best thing. I think North Carolina finally gets themselves corrected in that one.
Well, what's interesting is if UCF wins, it would be because of coaching, because their roster is not nearly as expensive or invested in. And what's fascinating there is
not that good.
No, but what's fascinating there is I think a month ago, if you'd asked anyone in America, they would have assumed Carolina was going to at least be better coached than Central Florida, right? Like they might have said, okay, Bill Belichick's going to need some adjustment time and all that, and they might not be Clemson or they might not be whatever, but they're going to do all right in the ACC. If UCF wins that game, it's Scott Frost in a kind of building his self back up like a phoenix from the ashes.
Yeah, the narrative changes fast.
The
narrative changes fast on Scott Frost,
because it won't be because of the roster. And I don't mean this as a slight to those players. North Carolina invested a lot of money in that roster. They brought in high dollar players at all the key positions, and got spanked on national TV once already. This game is on Fox, so it is also a national TV game. It's not quite primetime window. It's 3:30 Eastern. Big day, big weekend in the Big 12, and you and I, Christian, get to sit back and watch.
Yeah, I'm excited to be a college football sicko and not have to worry about a Kansas State game for once. I know a lot of my everydayers are hitting the golf course. Saw that in the comment section already. They're taking care of that probably for the last time before the weather turns. A perfect time to do so, but they can always come on back to our shows later on during the week and catch back on up, because that's exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah, we're breaking all kinds of things down this week. We've taken a moment during the bye week on Locked On Coogs to do some basketball conversations as well, because Houston Cougar basketball is never far from mine. We actually had a second to breathe. We've enjoyed the win over Colorado thoroughly. We're looking forward to winning a couple more. So all kinds of things like that at Locked On Cougs. Locked On Kansas State. What's been going on in the bye week before we get out of here, Christian?
Yeah, just lots of stuff, man. With the bye week, always covering stuff. You name it. We probably should get some basketball content out. Maybe we'll get some special weekend episodes out for you as well, because there's plenty to talk about. Less than 6 weeks until the basketball season actually starts, not counting exhibition games. So lots of excitement coming up for the men's basketball and women's for Kansas State as well.
That's Christian Ruff, Locked On Kansas State. I'm Parker Angel, Locked On Cougs, bringing a crossover episode to both of your feeds. Remember to hit subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we're live. Looking for a second listen of the day. Locked On Big 12 covers the whole conference, including that Texas Tech and Utah game very, very thoroughly. So go check them out as well. As always, I end it with a Go Cougs. Is there a hand signal? I don't know. Go Cougs.
Thanks for listening.